recording has started. Then we put the share screen mode and open the slides. Take them from the beginning. So, okay. We reached the 5th lecture. Yeah, okay. Let me just fix a bit here. Okay, yes. So welcome to lecture 5 of my classical Greek introductory course. Let me see if I can get this to work as well. All right. So today's topics. Today we're going to begin with looking at adjectives with 2 endings, which are inflected according to the second declension. You find details of these on page 65 to 67 in the Cambridge Grammar. After that, we continue with looking at some more verb forms in the present tense. So today we are learning the present active infinitive and imperative forms of thematic verbs, as well as the present imperative medio-passive forms, which you find in the lower left-hand corners on pages 129 and 130 in the Cambridge Grammar. Further, we are learning the paradigm for the inflection of the relative pronoun. And this you find on page 96, section 720 in the Cambridge Grammar. We then continue with overviewing the personal pronouns, which you find on page 89, section 7.1 in the Cambridge Grammar. Finally, we are also going to look at adverbs. But let's turn directly to the first topic of the day, which is 2 ending adjectives. Actually, there's nothing new for us when it comes to the inflection of these forms. We are already quite familiar with the second declension, both with the masculine and the neuter, which you can see are repeated here with the example adikos, adikon, which means unjust. But what's noteworthy in connection with adjectives of this type is that the masculine, the feminine, as well as the neuter all follow the second declension, and that there are no specific feminine forms like the ones we looked at previously. But the feminine and the masculine share forms in all numbers and cases. And thus, for instance, the adjective adikos in the nominative singular can be both masculine and feminine, depending on which noun it connects to. So if we speak of an unjust house in Greek, we can actually connect the attribute adikos to both the feminine and the masculine versions that we have learned of this noun. In other words, he adikos oikia and ho adikos oikos are both possible forms. But on the other hand, if we speak of an unjust temple, we should say to adikon hieron, since hieron is a neuter noun. In grammars and dictionaries, you can recognize adjectives with 2 endings in that only 2 forms are given. Like, for instance, in the case of the adjective meaning heavenly, which is given as uranios, uranion. It may be noted too that it's usually compound adjectives that are of this 2 ending type. Like, for instance, adikos, adikon, or athanatos, athanaton, which means immortal. In both of these compound adjectives, the first part consists of a so-called alpha privativum, expressing negation or absence. The alpha privativum survives in modern English as well, for instance, in the word atypical. It should be noted, however, that many adjectives alter between two endings and three ending types. For instance, the adjective meaning divine, hieros, hiera, hieron, is of this type, as it sometimes also occurs in its two ending form, hieros, hieron. But let's move on to the next topic, which is some new verb forms in the present tense. What we have on our program today is the present infinitive active, the present imperative active, and the present imperative medio-passive. Let's begin with the present infinitive active. Taking the usual paideuo as our example, the present infinitive would in this case be paideuein, which translates as to educate. Here, the root is again paideu, as we remember, and the ending marking the verb form as a thematic active present indicative is ein. In most modern European languages, the present active infinitive represents the basic form of the verb. But in classical Greek, the basic form is usually given as the active indicative present, that is paideuo. And this is also the form that you find when you look up the word in the dictionary, usually. Noteworthy of infinitives in general is that they can usually not function as predicates in a sentence. They are so-called indefinite forms of verbs, in contrast, for instance, to the indicative forms that we have looked at so far. These, in turn, are finite, which means that they take a person ending and can function like predicates, or do function like predicates. In fact, in Greek and English, this use of the finite and infinitive verb forms are shared, since infinitives cannot be used to express a subject's factual or imagined action in English either. For instance, the sentence "to educate my dog" does not make sense in itself, since it's not a complete sentence. Infinitives can, however, stand as subjects or objects in sentences in both Greek and English. And they can be combined with other finite verbs to form complete sentences. Some examples should clarify this. In the Greek sentence "plain ananke esti," the infinitive plain means to sail, and the complement ananke esti means is necessary. So the meaning of the sentence is to sail is necessary. And the infinitive acts here as the subject. In fact, in Greek, the infinitive can also receive a definite article to form a so-called articular infinitive, as in "to plain ananke esti," which also means to sail is necessary. Moreover, the infinitive is often referred to as the noun form of the verb, since it shares many syntactic functions with nouns. Thus, infinitives can also act as objects as well as subjects in sentences. as for instance in to haireen esti eu prottein, to enjoy oneself is to fare well, from Plato's Gorgias. And infinitives can also function as nouns in other cases than in the nominative or the accusative. For instance, in the genitive, as in ektu proteros legein hodiokon iskye, which translates as the prosecutor is strong due to his being the first to speak. But we will look at more uses of the infinitive in future lectures. Okay, let us turn then to our first imperatives. Imperatives are the verb forms which are used to express a command. Some examples of imperatives in English are be quiet and go away. In Greek, imperative forms occur in the second and third person singular, as well as in the second and third person plural. As an example, we can again take our paradigmatic verb paideuo. Here we have the root paideu, and we get the present active imperative forms of the verb by adding the right endings to this root. These are an epsilon, so an e in the second person singular, and ete in the second person plural. In the first of these forms, the accent moves backwards one syllable, so we get paideue, educate, in the second person singular. In the second person plural, again, we have paideu ete. And this form is actually formally identical with the second person plural active indicative present form of the verb, which we have learned, but the meaning is here in this case also the imperative educate. But here the command is of course directed to more than one person, since it's in the plural. The third person singular and plural imperative forms are less common than the ones in the second person. However, they are used as well. In the present active imperative, these are paideu eto in the third person singular and paideu onton or paideu etosan in the third person plural. And in these forms, you may again note the presence of the thematic vowel epsilon or omicron, which falls between the ending and the root of the verb forms. And the meaning of these imperatives in the third person would be may he, she educate and may they educate. Okay, since we got started with imperatives, we might as well have a look at the present medio-passive ones. They occur in the same persons and numbers in the medio-passive as in the active imperatives. In the second person singular, we have here paideu, and then we have paideu este in the second person plural. And this form is again, by the way, identical with the corresponding second person plural indicative form, which is also paideu este. But then we have paideu esto in the third person singular and paideu eston, alternatively paideu estosan in the third person plural. The meanings here are of course depending on whether the word is in the medial or in the passive voice. Thus paideu, for instance, could mean either be educated or educate, depending on the context. But let's move forward. The next topic is relative pronouns. The syntactic function of a relative pronoun is that it refers back to a noun or a noun phrase. In the English sentence, I have a friend who is bad, the word who is a relative pronoun. This pronoun refers back to the word friend in the preceding main clause, which is then the correlate of the relative pronoun. The whole clause, who is bad, functions as a so-called relative subordinate clause. And within this subordinate clause, the pronoun who functions as the subject. Now in Greek, the relative pronouns, just like the definite articles we have looked at, can be inflected according to case, number, and gender. Importantly, their case will then be determined by their function in the relative clause. That is, if they stand as a subject, object, indirect object, or something else. While their gender and number, on the other hand, is determined by their correlate in the main clause. Now, in chapter 4 of our textbook, we will encounter many examples of relative pronouns, and we will then also see how they function in sentences. Anyhow, this is how the paradigm for the relative pronouns look like in classical Greek. You may note that unlike the definite articles, all relative pronouns have an accent, and that they likewise receive a spiritus asper in all numbers, genders, and cases. So if we go through this, we have in the singular masculine, os, hu, ho, on. In the feminine, he, hes, he, hen. And in the neuter, ho, hu, ho, ho. And then in the plural masculine, hoi, hon, hois, hus. And in the feminine, hai, hon, hais, has. And then in the neuter plural, ha, hon, hois, and ha. But let's go on to the next paradigm directly. So here we have the inflection of the personal pronoun in first person and second person singular and plural. So in the first person singular, we have ego, so I, and then the genitive emu or mu, in the dative emoi or moi, and in the accusative eme or me. And then in the second person, sy, so you, which is the same also in vocative. In the vocative case, then we have in the genitive su or su, in the dative soy, and the accusative se and se. And then in the first person plural, we have hemes in the nominative, so this is we. Then the genitive is hemon, so that's ours, and then the dative hemin and the accusative hemas, so us. And then second person plural is hymes, so you in the plural nominative, then hymon, yours, and hymin, the dative, and hymas in the accusative. So note here the spiritus asper in the personal pronouns for the first and second person plural forms, and that the first and second person singular forms exist in two varieties in all other cases except the nominative. And that one of these are accented, have an accent, and the other one is unaccented, so lacking an accent. But since we've gotten into the habit of looking at paradigms, we might as well go through the personal pronouns in the third person. Actually, the paradigm that you see here is for the so-called intensive pronoun, autos, aute, auton, the meaning of which is self. Like, for instance, ego autos can mean I, myself, but they are used as regular pronouns in classical Greek as well. Or actually, the nominative forms are only used as pronouns in the New Testament and later Greek, but the other cases are commonly used as personal pronouns in classical Greek as well. And you can see here that that this time I have actually included the rare dual number in the paradigm, just to give you an impression of how they look. However, I don't expect you to learn them by heart. But take some time to contemplate this paradigm, since I want to read through all the forms. And you may note here that there are no forms in the vocative case, but this is, of course, because no one is ever spoken to directly to in the third person. So the same applies, of course, to the first person personal pronouns. There's no vocative form of those either, because you don't call yourself, or you don't speak to yourself. Okay, so then we have one noteworthy rule about the use of personal pronouns in classical Greek, and that's that their genitive forms are often used instead of possessive pronouns to express ownership. So thus we can, for instance, by using a personal pronoun, say ho philos autou, which means his friend, or ho philos hemon, which means our friend. But we can also use ho he meteros philos, which also means our friend, but where we use a possessive pronoun, he meteros, instead of a personal pronoun. So this he meteros here is a possessive pronoun, or a possessive adjective, actually. But then you can say basically the same thing also with a personal pronoun by using a personal pronoun in the genitive form. Okay, so time has now come for the last topic of the day, which are adverbs. Adverbs are, as you may know, a class of words that qualify or modify a verb, an adjective, or even a whole clause or sentence. One difference between adverbs and adjectives is that the adverbs are not inflected according to case, number, and gender. That is, they do not follow the inflection of the words they connect to. Just like adjectives, they are inflected in the comparative and the superlative, however, but this we will look at later. In classical Greek, there are different ways that adverbs can be formed. One very common type is the ones ending in "os." And one practical way of constructing adverbs of this type is to proceed from the form of the corresponding adjective in the masculine plural genitive form, and then replace the concluding ny with sigma. So that's, for instance, the masculine genitive plural form of plusios, rich, is plusion, And from this form, we get the adverb plusios, richly. Likewise, from kakos, bad, through kakon, we can derive the form of the adverb kakos, badly. So that was all for today. Any questions or comments? No questions or comments. Everything was clear as glass. Who has, by the way, access to microphone? Does anyone have? I know Helen has. How about Christina? Do you have access to microphone now? Okay, all right. Yeah, and Tofi has the problem with the Wi-Fi, so. But maybe we can try anyway some kind of cooperation with this chapter 3, following the same, since there's more people present today, following the same same procedure that we had last time, so that you write in the chat some suggestions, if you have time to look at it, of course. So if I share the screen again, we can take chapter 3 under consideration. So this was the chapter. So do you have any suggestion for this first sentence? Sotsmai hypo tu adelphu. You can write in the chat, or you can also, if you have a mic, you can say it. So sotsmai hypo tu adelphu. What could that mean? Nigel has, I am saved by my brother, which is exactly correct. So this sotsmai, how would you analyze that verb form? Which person and which voice is it in, for instance? Nigel, do you have some suggestion? This sotsmai. First person passive, exactly. First person singular passive. So this was what we learned last lecture, that the passive forms are in the present indicative. They are identical with the middle voice forms. So sotsmai here, if it would be a middle voice, it could mean also I save. But here it's passive, first person singular passive. So then it means I am saved. How can we know that it's passive? Well, we have this agent construction here. Hypo tu adelpho, hypo and the genitive. So this is the agent. So this is the one controlling the action, the brother. So I am saved by my brother. It would be a good translation in English. Or I am saved by the brother. So because, as I said, this definite article tu can have also this possessive meaning, but it can indicate that it's my or his or hers, but it can also have just be a normal definite article like the. So very good. Okay, next one. blapte hypoton ektron. Any suggestions here? So this, I would translate this as, wait, we have something here. Yeah, exactly. You are not stopped by the enemy. Good. So here we have again a passive form of this verb blapto. It can be many things, but in the passive, it usually means being stopped. So this is second person singular, this verb. And then we have again an agent here, the enemies. So you are not stopped by the enemies. Perfect. Okay. Third sentence. He chora zodzetai hypotu stratego. What do we have here? Christina, yes. The country is saved by the general. Yes, exactly. So we have so far only passive forms of the verb, but now we have a verb in the third person singular. So first person singular, second person singular, and here we have third person singular. Present medio-passive indicative, but in this case passive, because again we have this agent here. Hypotu stratego, by the general, this prepositional phrase here, by the general. And then here we have also a subject, he chora, the land. The land is saved by the general. Very good. Okay. Fourth sentence then. Pempameta eisten agoran. Nigel. We are sent into the marketplace. Yes. Very good. So again, we have a verb in the passive here. So now we move to the first person plural. So this is very systematic. We are sent. Again, we only have the present tense so far, so everything is in the present tense. But this is a medio-passive first person plural indicative form, meaning we are sent. We are sent. We are sent into the marketplace. And actually here there is no agent, so we don't know who is doing this sending. So this is quite common as well, that you have a verb in the passive, but then you don't have any agent, which is controlling the action. So the agent is completely lacking here. We only have this accusative object to tell where we are being sent. Okay, fifth sentence then. Paideveste hypoton didaskalon. What do we have here? Christina, you toil under the teacher. Good attempt, but I will go with Nigel's here. We are educated by the teachers, or closer to it, because you had again first person plural here, Nigel, but this is actually second person plural, this Paideveste. So it's you who are educated by the teacher. You in the plural are educated by the teacher, or by our teachers. Yes, could be, or by their teachers in this case, because by your teachers, I mean, you are educated by your teacher, it would be in that case. So this is again a passive form, but now in the second person plural. And then we have this hypo with the genitive agent here. Okay, last one. So we have had all persons and numbers so far except the last one. So which could the last one be? Here we have hoi polemioi diokontai. So what could that mean? They keep war away. No, I can see that you had polemio. You thought could mean war, but again it's polemos, which is war, but polemios, that's enemies. But not a very bad guess, actually. Nigel has the enemy are being pursued. This is correct, I would say. So of course we have hoi polemioi, the enemies in the plural in the Greek, but probably in English the enemy in the singular is better. And the enemy, what happens to them? Well, they are being pursued. So here we have a third person plural present medio-passive of the verb dioko, which dioko in the active present indicative first person singular means I pursue, but in the passive it would be I am pursued, but here it's third person plural, so then it's they are being pursued, or the enemies are being pursued. So the enemies are being pursued, literally. The enemy is kept away. Dioko is not keeping away. It's dioko means exactly to pursue someone. So feugo means I flee. Dioko, I pursue. Except feugo in a judicial context means I defend myself. So if I say feugo in a judicial context, then it's I defend myself against a charge. And dioko in a judicial context is I accuse someone. So I'm the accuser. But here it's not judicial context. Okay, then we have this story. What could this title be? He hespera tes oporas. What could that mean? Any suggestion? He hespera tes oporas. It's a bit difficult one, I think. I would say it could be translated as the late summer night. So the evening of summer's end, yes. So a night or an evening during the end of the summer. Okay, then this first sentence here. Ede hespera estin. What does it mean? So hede is an adverb, means already. Could mean already, for instance. Nigel has, it is already evening, yes. So hespera is here in the nominative singular, hespera, evening. But that's because it stands together with this Amy, this to be verb. It is evening. It is already evening. Very good. Okay. Then we have a longer sentence. Nynde hesychian ago metatus bonus tes hemeras. Nynde oikade baditso. Any suggestions here? Here we have. This sentence is difficult, yes. Because I should have had this whole I think this whole expression hesychian ago, I should have added it to the glossary. So this could mean in itself just rest. I rest. Hesychian ago, I rest. Yeah, but it's actually I, because ago is first person singular. Means lead. In itself, this means lead. So, and hesychia is peace or quiet. So I lead quiet, literally this. I lead quiet. But I would say that a good translation could be I rest. So nyn de hesychian ago. If you start with that, what does nyn mean? It means now. Nyn means now. And de is a particle, like an emphasizing particle. So it's just like really or truly or something like this. Now I really rest, or you can just say now I rest. Nyn de hesychian ago. Now I rest. And then meta tus bonus tes hemeras. So meta is a preposition. And when it stands together with an accusative followed by an accusative, like here, you have an accusative that follows this. Meta tus bonus, then it's after. So here it means after the toils, oponos, toil, toils. After the toils of what? Of tes hemeras, of the day. So now I rest after the toils of the day. And then it continues. Nyn de oikade baditso. So here we have again the same beginning. Now, indeed, or now, truly. Now I truly, and then oikade means towards home or towards to home. And baditso is I go. Now I go home or walk home. So the whole sentence. Now I rest after the toils of the day. Now I walk home. Okay, then we have again a longer sentence. Eti ente opera hai hemerai thermai eisin. Eti akuomen ton mikron melitton. Al heskiates hesperas sykra estin. Yeah. Okay, then I go home. Yeah, that could be a less literal translation. Nyn in itself means usually now, so literally nyn de oikade, but it's now I go home. So if you cut down this sentence to clauses, if you start with this first clause, eti ente opera hai hemerai thermai eisin. What could that mean? So eti means still, and this opera was in the late summer. So still in, preposition in, still in or during the late summer, hai hemerai, the days, thermai eisin, are warm. So in the late summer, the days are still long. And then we have eti akuomen ton mikron melitton. So still we hear, and akuo is a verb which takes a genitive object. So this is the object here in the genitive. Ton mikron melitton. Still we hear the small bees. So note here that this is a first person plural active present indicative because it has this ending, omen. Omen. So still we hear the small bees. And then we have this all, which means alla. but the last letter alla, the last alpha has been eluded away because the following word begins with a vowel. That's why it's all instead of alla. But alla means but. Alla he skia. Let's see what's here in the. Yes, Kristin has the shade of the evening is chilly. Yes. Yes. The shade of the evening is cold. Very good. So that would be the last clause here. So during the late summer, the days are still warm. We can still hear the small bees, but the shade of the evening is cold. Good. So next sentence. Kadetsumeta entes kiates hemeteras oikeaskai taumatsamen ten kaalen horan. What could that be? If we again start with this first clause here. Kadetsumeta entes kiates hemeteras oikeas. What could that mean? So here we have again this skia, shadow, but here is in a different case. It's in the dative case here because it's guided by this preposition en, in, ente skia, in the shadow, this part here, ente skia. Katedsameta, we sit in the shadow, tes hemeteras oikeas, of our house. Kadetsameta ente skia, tes hemeteras oikeas. We sit in the shadow of our house. Tai taumatsamen ten kaalen horan. What could that mean? We adore the good land country. Yes. So kai is and we adore the good land or the beautiful land, or we marvel at, or we admire, whatever you like. We admire the beautiful land. So again, you have to note this. Always be careful. What person, when it's a verb form, what person and what number is it? So this is first person plural. Then it's we. Taumatsuman. Okay. So next sentence, which we can again take in clauses. Hede selene lampe. What does that mean? The moon shines, yes, on the earth. You added on the earth, but actually it's only hede selene lampe. So actually only the moon shines. It doesn't say what it shines on. It just shines. So selene means moon, and this is of course a definite article. And de is and. So here the de falls between the definite article and the and falls between the definite article and the noun. He de selene, and the moon, lampe, shines. Third person singular. And then we have the next clause. Hoste kai ge kai talatta leukkaa fainonta. What could that mean? So hoste is an conjunction, or a conjunction. So that could be translated as so that. So that kai ge Do we have something here? Christina, the last look white. Yeah, leukai fainonta. Yeah, could be look white. Very good. So that both land and sea. So kai. So that and both kai and kai, both and. So that both land and sea white appear or look white, as you said. Nigel, as if the land and the sea appear white. Yeah. Yeah. Hoste could also be as if in some context, but here I would say it's more like an object. This whole is an object clause, so-called object clause, and then it's like more like the natural way would be maybe to translate this as so that. So the whole sentence. The moon shines so that the land and the sea, or both the land and the sea, appear white or look white, as Christina said. So this fainonta is from fainomai, which means also has many different meanings, but here it could mean appear. So it's the form here is middle passive, so it's a third person plural middle passive indicative, present indicative. So formally it's middle passive, but probably best interpreted here as being in the middle voice, because it's the land and the sea that do something, right? There is a subject here which do something. The subject appears white. So if there is if it functions as if there is some subject doing something, then it can't be passive, right? Because if it would be passive, then the subject would be the object of the action, actually. But that's not the case here. So that's why it's in the middle voice, this verb form here, this fainonta. Okay, then we have another longer sentence, which we can again break down into clauses. Enmen dexia eis Athenas apopleppes. What could that mean? Christina, and on the right side you see Athens. Very good. It's Athens. So it's here in the plural, actually. Athenas, feminine accusative plural form, because Athens is Athenai in the nominative. So it's in the plural, actually, the city of Athens. Athenai, Athens. So on the right hand, in Mendexia, on the right hand or to the right, into Athens, you look, actually, literally. But on the right hand, you see Athens. And then, and the Aristera Elaiai Hypselai, and the Aristera Elaiai Hypselai eisi kai ho hieros bomos. Okay, let's stop there. And the Aristera Elaiai Hypselai eisi. What could that mean? Elaiai means olive trees. We had this in a previous chapter. So it's in the plural here, Elaiai, olive trees. Okay, suggestions. And on the left, yes, exactly. And on the left, and the Aristera, and on the left, olive trees. And then what? Hypselai is. So this is an adjective. Connecting, it's in the same number and case as this Helaya, so it connects to this Elijah hypsela. What does that mean? Tall, yeah. Tall olive trees. Or large, maybe. But tall. Olive trees can be tall, right? Tall olive trees are. So on the left hand, there are tall olive trees. And then what? Kai and hieros bomos tes theu Athenas. What does that mean? Bomos means altar. Hieros, divine or holy. The holy altar. And the holy altar of who? The sacred altar, yes, good. And the sacred altar of the goddess Athene. Yeah, Athena. Exactly. So here we have, this is not Athens, this is Athena. I gave the parodying for this verb or this name in the lecture. So this one of these contracted first declension, feminine first declension verbs, which is here in the genitive case of the goddess Athene. So the whole sentence. On the right, you look at, or you see Athens. On the right, you see Athens. And on the left, there are tall olive trees and the sacred altar of the goddess Athene. Okay. Then this last one. Ukun means therefore. Ukun he attike kale fainetai. What does that mean? Attike means Attica. So that's the place where Athens was, like the land or the region. Yeah, therefore Attica seems beautiful. Exactly. And then it's actually supposed like a question. So this semicolon like sign here in Greek texts is actually marks a question. So it's actually a question. Therefore Attica appears or seems beautiful, and a question. So maybe it could even be translated as, does not Attica then appear or seem beautiful? Don't you think? Oh, yes. All right. So that was it. And yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot to translate for every time. So I think if you can try to do a few sentences at least, or as much as you have time for, then it's good. So and then we can look at the rest together during the lectures. And it's good if you can do at least something, then we get a better reading session. If everyone has put down some effort and try to translate a few sentences at least. Thank you, Helen. Thank you. So, okay, I'll send you new material again tomorrow, and it's looking good. You're clearly getting a hang of it, and yeah, learning Greek. So thanks for today, and hope to see you next week.